The House at Washington Street. A memoir from Trương Hữu Hiền. Originally Ngôi, trên, đường, Washington. Translated by Minh. Whenever I made a stop at Cambridge Street, situated on the opposite side of the Charles River, my usual routine involved a 15 to 20-minute drive along Massachusetts Avenue at a leisurely pace. Subsequently, I would take a right turn at the intersection near the road's end and park in front of house number 101 on Washington Street. This house held great significance as it was once owned by Bob and Ellen, affectionately known as Dr. and Mrs. Robert H. Spaethling, who shared a close and intimate friendship with my family. The house possesses a charming Victorian architectural style, consisting of 2 stories and providing ample shade from the summer sun in its front yard. Over time, the new owner had made several modifications yet carefully preserved the essence of its original design. Although the front door usually stayed shut, the back door across the porch was frequently left slightly ajar. As I gazed across the spacious courtyard, old memories flooded back. I could still summon the memory of Bob and me seated at a circular iron table at the center of the porch. A bottle of Cabernet Sauvignon awaited on the table, accompanied by a generous plate of delectable snacks thoughtfully prepared by Bob's wife, Ellen. It transported me back to a late Friday afternoon over 2 decades past, when Bob had kindly assisted me in editing an English thesis for my class. Afterward, we had no obligations other than indulging in good food, fine wine, and heartfelt conversations. Those peaceful Friday afternoons held a special place in my memory as they occurred during the summer of my first year in America. The warmth and tranquility of those days remained etched in my mind. I could still vividly recall Bob and Ellen's soft voices and laughter. Bob's captivating storytelling, which effortlessly blended philosophy and humor, still resonated with me. One story that stood out was his frequent retelling of his first encounter with my younger brother Dick a decade ago. "You know," Bob would say, "I distinctly remember when I first unexpectedly saw Dick sitting in the Harvard Library. He appeared as a gentle-looking young Asian man of modest stature." With a sip of wine, Bob customarily twirled his glass. Then, he added, "You know, Hien, around that time I was looking for extra materials for the book on Mozart's life, which I was in the middle of writing, so I stopped by the Harvard Library every afternoon, where I was teaching. And every time I saw Dick sitting there, seriously studying." Dick was such a tiny figure in the middle of a crowd of tall white young men and rows of giant bookshelves. Dick has a young and gentle face resembling that of a high school kid. Just a glance, and I developed an instant affection for him. Bob chuckled. Then one day, Bob found a seat nearby and offered to get acquainted with the young man. Dick was from Northern California and just started his Ph.D. in dentistry at Harvard, which was a big surprise to Bob, who thought the young man with a baby face of a high school kid was probably just a first-year student at Harvard. Bob introduced himself as from the West Coast Bay Area. Based on a few brief interactions, Bob sensed something positive about the young man he had just met. Finally, as the library was about to close, Bob invited my brother to visit his home, which was only a short distance away. Since then, they have forged a profound bond with each other. Dr. Robert Spaethling and his wife gained a deeper understanding of Duc, a Vietnamese escapee who arrived in the U.S. as a refugee during the height of the globally resonating boat people movement a few years ago. Ellen and Bob greatly admired Duc, considering that when he first arrived in America, he could only speak a few words of English. Only 10 years later, however, Duc was sitting in the lecture hall at the world's most famous and prestigious institution. They understood that to gain admission to Harvard, Duc must have dedicated years of unwavering and relentless effort. Dr. Robert Spaethling was also a teenager when he first arrived in the United States. He came from a devastated Germany after the Second World War. Bob had completed his undergraduate studies and submitted his doctoral thesis at Berkeley University in California. To gain a foothold in society and build his life in the United States, Bob also had to spend many years of tireless effort and determination. Bob would occasionally mention a fascinating coincidence between them. While Duc was growing up in the small city of Da Nang in central Vietnam, Bob spent his childhood in Weissenstadt, a tiny town tucked away in eastern Germany. As a result, Bob saw a reflection of his youth in my young brother Duc. Because of Bob and Ellen's genuine warmth and kindness, Duc started visiting their home every weekend, almost like he was a part of their family. Bob and Ellen had a deep affection for Duc, and my brother held them in the highest regard as well. Bob and Ellen became Duc's godparents in addition to his biological parents. Moreover, their unwavering support played a pivotal role in Duc's extensive intellectual journey, from obtaining a doctorate in dentistry to becoming a specialist in his field and standing at the graduation podium of Harvard University. When Duc got married, my mother had already passed away, and my father could not attend due to health issues back in Vietnam. Bob and Ellen stood in as representatives of the groom's family. It saw the special intimate relationship between my brother and Dr. and Mrs. Robert H. Spaethling. Upon meeting my parents, Bob and Ellen quickly recognized their sadness because of leaving Vietnam. As a result, they often expressed a genuine interest in learning about my parents' native land and encouraged them to talk about it. Even though communication was facilitated through translation, my parents felt relieved and less homesick after being allowed to express their feelings. Through conversations, Bob and Ellen also learned from my parents that there existed a prosperous land called Quang Nam in the heart of Vietnam, along with a peaceful tiny village named Ton Quet. Bob and Ellen expressed a keen interest in learning about the people and their way of life there. Ton Quet gained recognition for its rich revolutionary heritage, characterized by a strong sense of brotherhood among villagers, unwavering love for each other and their country, advocacy for the underprivileged, and bold resistance against oppression. Apart from conventional farming, the village was known for industries like tobacco cultivation and processing, sericulture, fabric weaving, and even a hair salon. Bob showed great interest in hearing my father discuss the remarkable trait of the Ton Quet villagers, their relentless pursuit of learning. Despite enduring extreme poverty, the parents in Tonquit would never allow their children to remain illiterate. As a result, the village produced numerous renowned scientists, professors, doctors, engineers, and pharmacists. This achievement was a source of immense pride for the villagers. My dad's captivating stories of Tonquit Village intrigued Bob and Ellen. They eagerly promised to arrange a visit there someday. Unfortunately, due to various health issues affecting Bob, Ellen, and my parents, that promise was yet fulfilled. Nevertheless, Bob and Ellen often brought up my dad's stories about Tonquit in everyday conversations. A few years into retirement, Mr. and Mrs. Robert Spaethling decided to move to Larkspur City in California, Ellen's hometown, with a warmer climate than the U.S. Northeast region. So, they built a small house to enjoy their golden years. A lovely home nestled in the middle of a garden full of blooming flowers and melodious birdsongs. Bob and Ellen are now gone. Ellen passed away more than 3 years ago, and Bob recently. Being far away, and during the corona epidemic of the century, did not allow us to return to California to say goodbye. Among our siblings, it was the most sorrowful and greatest regret we all shared. We all held Bob in our memories with gratitude and appreciation, but also with great admiration for his compassionate, humble, and empathetic qualities. In our interactions with Bob, his remarkable credentials as a Harvard professor and an accomplished scientist never overshadowed our experience. Instead, we felt a sense of intimacy that encouraged us to confide in him openly, without any apprehension or reservation. Whenever summer comes, I find myself in Cambridge. This city houses prestigious institutions such as Harvard University and MIT. Usually, I make it a point to visit Bob and Ellen's old residence on Washington Street. These visits stir up in me a deep feeling of longing for them. The house remains as a tangible reminder of the passage of time. As I fixed my gaze on the house, I couldn't help but contemplate the fragile nature of human life. My heart yearned to return to Northern California and pay tribute to my late sister by lighting incense at her grave. I will also take this opportunity to bid farewell to Bob and Ellen by placing a white flower branch on their final resting place. Sorrow envelopes my heart, and tears well up in my eyes. Boston, Summer 2022. Trương Hữu Hiền.